Good morning, students. So, today we are going to have the last lecture of this week, Role of Urban Governance for Ecosystem Protection. What we will be discussing in this lecture today? Governance of urban ecosystems, institutional frameworks and the silo problem, regulatory, financial and technological tools. We will be discussing the challenges like data deficits and property rights. And definitely, as you understand, we will be discussing some case examples, global and Indian one, so that we remember what we are discussing, how to really comprehend them. Finally, we will be concluding with the discussion on role of the judiciary and future synthesis. So let us start with the governance of urban ecosystems. We will see that there is a shift from government to governance. So what does the term government means? The formal hierarchical institutions of the state like municipal corporation, development authority, that is representing government. And what is governance? The broader process of decision making involving state and non-state actors like NGOs, resident welfare associations, CBOs, private sectors, judiciary. So that's the way now you can see a shift, and I will also discuss the constitutional changes which facilitated this shift. The core shift is moving from command and control, rigid regulations to polycentric governance, collaborative, multi-centered management. This is very important. Why so? Urban ecosystems like lakes, forests has the cross administrative boundaries. A single agency often cannot manage them effectively. And we will expand this discussion further in this lecture. This polycentric governance can be defined as a system with multiple formally independent centers of decision making that coordinate action. We can see its application in India, like state agencies are there, technical and financial power. ULBs, urban local bodies are there, local implementation. Citizen groups, monitoring and stewardships, which we discussed at the earlier part of this week's lecture. Academic institutions like data, science, advancement, innovation, those parts. And all these are happening with a goal to create the redundancy and resilience. If one actor fails, like municipality fails, then another one like resident association will chip in. So that's the way this polycentric governance is being appreciated. We are in the regime of multi-level institutional framework. If we try to look even for the environmental control and we try to look at the structure, we can understand this multi-level institutional arrangement very easily. Like at national level, who sets the policy and standards? We have the Ministry of Environment Protection, MOEFCC, who enacts the laws like Environmental Protection Act 1986. And these national level organizations have the missions like Smart City Missions, Amrut, National Clean Air Program, etc. At the state level, next level, subnational level, we see the operational part, the parastatals. Parastatals like development authorities, DDS, Bangalore Development Authorities, MMRDA, they are responsible for master plans and land monetization. And other than parastatals at the state level, we also see the regulators like state pollution control boards who enforce the emission effluent standards, and state biodiversity boards who registers the biodiversity. So further down we can see in that pyramid it's the local level, the ULBs, the urban local bodies who are responsible for waste management, parks and drainage under the 74th constitutional amendment. And this amendment was mandated the devolution of 18 specific functions to ULBs listed in the 12th schedule. The 74th Constitutional Amendment Act CAA of 1992 is a very remarkable amendment for the entire governance system of India, where we could see the decentralization of power happened to the ULBs, municipal corporations, municipal councils, and Nagar Panchayats. They become a responsible body visibly. They have the accountability. They are the primary custodian of the urban ecosystem as well. So, this amendment has a mandate. The 12th schedule devolves, as I mentioned earlier, 18 functions to ULBs, including urban forestry, protection of the environment, and promotion of ecological aspects. The reality is, we can see the challenges there, that mandate versus the capacity of these ULBs. Financial weakness. Most of the ULBs rely on state grants, but they often lack sufficient funds for ecological restoration. There is also a capacity gap, lack of specialized urban ecologists or landscape planners in municipal cadres. Limited authority they have. We can see that strategic land use decisions like master plans are often retained by state development authorities and they completely bypass the ULBs. Now we will see the role of governance actors like civil society, resident welfare associations, and NGOs. So we talked about the central level, then the state level, then we talked about the ULBs. Now we are at the civil society. Role of resident welfare association, they are the formal bodies registered under the Societies Registration Act. They can manage neighborhood parks and waste segregation at source. Like East Delhi RWS are arranging funds for park maintenance. But again, they are having their own challenges. They often focus on beautification, manicured lawns, rather than biodiversity, which can lead to conflict with ecological goals. They can be exclusionary as well, gated communities. They will restrict the access of commons. That is very common again. And we will also discuss the another stakeholder group, that is the NGOs. Community mobilization and behavior change, bridging institutions and citizens, data generation and citizen science, implementation of local urban ecological projects, advocacy and policy influence, stewardship we were talking about, that may be the role of NGOs, and working in informal settlements. These are several important roles played by the NGOs. The limitations: fragmented and project based work, limited scale and resources. They always depend on the government cooperation. Representation challenges, accountability and transparency is a heavy issue on them. Limited technical expertise, conflicts with political or commercial interests always hinders their activities. And after understanding government and governance and the actors, now let us understand the problem of the silo or fragmentation. Take the very live example of the Delhi air pollution. Governance failure often stems from institutional fragmentation. The right example is Delhi, probably. In this air quality management only, we could understand that. MOEFCC, central one, who set the standard. CAQM, the regional one, the Commission for Air Quality Management, they are the responsible agency. Delhi Pollution Control Committee, they are monitoring it. Municipal corporations at the local level, they are checking the waste burning, road dust, they are managing. Transport department is taking care of the vehicular emissions part. But as a result, each one of them If they're not having the flow of information and communication, then we can find the institutional paralysis is existing, where agencies shift blame, leading to annual smog crisis. Everyone claims from top to bottom that they are doing the work, but ultimately we can find that citizens are actually getting the smog every time. Now we will be discussing the regulatory instruments. Zoning and master plans are very powerful instrument. Land use planning and its violation, that's the challenge part. First, let us see the strength of this tool. Master plans designate green belts, open spaces, and no development zones. But, yeah, there is a but. The change of land use tool, which is a legal provision and allows the executive to alter designated land use. So, the criticism for this particular tool is that frequently it is being used by the executives to convert agricultural or green buffers into residential or commercial zones for real estate speculation. There is a very strong example which I will share with you, like regularization schemes are there. Akrama Sakrama in Karnataka. Periodic schemes that legalize unauthorized constructions on payment of a penalty, undermining the sanctity of zoning laws. So you can easily understand that this type of change of land use tool can really bring havoc damage to the purpose of the zoning and master plans like tools. The next one I will be discussing here, regulatory tools, that is urban and regional development plans formulation and implementation guidelines, URDPFI guidelines 2014. All of us probably aware about it. From that, what buffer zone mandates specifies no development zones around water bodies. Rivers, if you have within the urban areas, minimum 30-meter buffer. Where is the context? Whether it is river, stream, or like that. And that changes again is there. Lakes and ponds, buffer to prevent encroachment. And just now I shared in the previous lecture that the Hyderabad case, you remember that case where the park was having its buffer zone, which from that 30-meter was brought back to 3 to 7-meter. So these are the type of interventions we find from the executives. So the governance issue here, these guidelines are not binding by laws. States or city authorities often ignore recommended buffers in their own town planning acts to maximize developable lands. And that happens rampantly. Similarly, another important regulatory tool we need to discuss, which is very, very relevant for this particular discussion, that is urban ecosystem, that is environmental impact assessment notification, which came in 2006. The construction loopholes. The category B2 in item number 8A and 8B, the category B2 exemption is, we have talked about many good things, how the boundaries needs to be drawn. But then we are bringing the exemption. What this exemption is talking about? Construction projects, anything which is more than 1,50,000 square meter built up area, they are often exempted from detailed environmental impact assessment studies and public hearings as well. So definitely I think we can well imagine the impact of this type of exemptions. Large housing complexes that concrete over wetlands or cut thousands of trees can bypass citizen scrutiny. And we can see how the developers are taking advantage of this type of loopholes. One very common strategy we can find in everyday urban projects. That's a segmentation strategy. Developers divide large townships into smaller phases, phase 1, phase 2, so that they can stay under the threshold and avoid stricter environmental clearance requirements. That happens also in uh, regional area development, like road projects. You go in segments and you avoid the EIA notification. Another very important act is the State Tree Protection Acts. But the beauty is, you will find that every state has their own way to delineate this act. It's a legal framework to urban greenery. So, we are very much interested. But when you go into it, you can see that legislation is varying as the state varies. Delhi Preservation of Tree Act of 1994, Maharashtra has separate one for urban areas, Protection and Preservation of Trees Act 1975, Karnataka has for 1976, but all of them are having very different type of legislation. Something is contextual and definitely it is dominated by urban political theories. There is also governance challenge into this. The tree officer, it's a paradox. The official who is responsible for protecting trees is also the same one who is empowered to grant permission for tree felling. So just imagine that. Compensatory afforestation often allows cutting mature urban trees in exchange of planting saplings far away outside the city, maybe at periphery or maybe in the adjoined towns, resulting in net loss of local microclimate benefits, which is required in maybe core of the city. Now we will be discussing data and participatory tools. And this is again, you will find the reflection of improvement in the tools and technology side, science and tools and technologies. The first, we will be discussing the People's Biodiversity Register, PBR. It's having a legal basis because there is an act, Biological Diversity Act 2002. Its structure is national to the state board, then to the Biodiversity Management Committee at the local body level. So, we have components at three different levels where the expectation is they shall be in sync. So, the National Biodiversity Authority to State Biodiversity Board to the Biodiversity Management Committee at ULB. The document, what is their function? Documentation of local flora, fauna and traditional knowledge to prevent biopiracy and establish ownership. In the 2022 data, we can see around 2.76 lakhs of these biodiversity management committees are constituted and around 2.65 lakhs of People's Biodiversity Register documented across India. The challenge is this PBR data is rarely integrated into the master plan zoning process. But until and unless that collected information is not being utilized, then it is not really having that meaningful utilization of that data. Now we will be discussing another interesting part, that is the transfer of development rights, TDR. Again, probably many of us will know about TDR, a market-based tool to compensate landowners for not developing environmentally sensitive or heritage land. What are the mechanisms involved into it? Landowners, they surrender green zone or heritage property rights to the municipality. And in lieu of that, they receive a TDR certificate, development rights somewhere else. Now they can sell this certificate to a developer in another part of the city to build extra floors above the normal FSI limits provided by the ULB. We find that its application has happened in many places, including Ahmedabad, who has used TDR to conserve heritage pole houses, and they manage slum rehabilitation program without the state expenditure as an exchange. Now we will be discussing smart cities. Integrated command and control centers we can find in the smart cities, which are the nerve centers established in 100 plus smart cities under the smart city mission. Environmental function, real-time monitoring of air quality sensors, flood monitoring, GIS mapping over the green one. They have the potential to move governance from reactive, responding to the complaints, that phase, to proactive, data-driven intervention. So that way, smart cities, this integrated command and control centers are having lot of good potentials to help the urban ecosystems. Now we'll be discussing the financialization of nature. The first thing we'll be discussing under this is the green bond, the debt securities issued to fund projects with positive environmental benefits. We have There is an estimation of around 840 billion is needed for Indian urban infrastructure by 2036. So from where grants will come is very insufficient. So this green bonds concept was being floated. Governance impact, they are going to issue the bonds which are going to force the ULBs to improve. Financial transparency, double entry accounting will be required. Credit ratings, project monitoring discipline, these are going to be the impact of this governance. We have some good example who have already utilized these green bonds, like Ghaziabad raised 150 crores. The purpose was tertiary sewage treatment plant to recycle water for industry, and it became the first green municipal bond in India. We see also in 2023, Indore Municipal Corporation brought the bond and they raised 244 crores, oversubscribed, and their purpose was 60 megawatt solar power plant. The revenue model includes earning of around 9 crores per year from selling carbon credits. So that's a very innovative point of this particular green initiative. There is also CSR and private capital, corporate social responsibility. It comes through the Companies Act 2013, which mandates 2% profits has to be spent on CSR by the companies. Urban ecology opportunities are there, like we have seen the lake restoration projects in Bengaluru by Titan and Infosys. Urban forestry programs are also in pipelines. There are several governance challenges also in this, like short-term interest of these companies. They always prefer they can advertise, they needs to have visibility. So planting drives are much more than long-term maintenance. Accountability, that is also a challenge. Who owns the restored lake? We not only talked about this ownership, we also talked about the gentrification, if you remember. So, ensuring public access remains after the private funding, that itself is a challenge. Now, let us see the challenges together. Data deficit, the invisible ecosystem. Small wetlands and streams often missing from official revenue maps. We have seen that, and we have seen with the advancement of techniques how those smaller patches can be made documented. There are also classification issues, like ecologically rich areas, they are classified as wasteland, kharab land or poramboke. So very easy to transform them into built area. The classification legally enables their diversion for productive use like housing, industry, etc. So the consequence becomes like this: if it's not on the map, it doesn't exist. And legal erasure precedes physical destruction. And that's so very common in our Indian cities. Property rights, ambiguous ownership of urban commons. We always have a difficulty to maintain common pool resources. lakes, grazing lands. They were traditionally village commons. When the urban transition happened, villages became part of the cities. Ownership transfers to the state bodies like revenue departments. Traditional community management system fully collapsed. So now the state bodies who are supposed to manage. So what happens? Open access regime to tragedy of commons, encroachment, dumping. That's the way they gradually gets integrated into the urban areas. In Bangalore, we have seen the lakes are owned by the revenue department, but custody is transferred to the municipal body. So there is a stark gap in the enforcement power. Now, let us go for some case examples. We will discuss a very positive case, that's a Rotterdam. What a governance model. The city is 90% below sea level. So, governance innovation happened. Rotterdam Climate Proof Program was initiated. Who are the actors? Municipalities, water boards. Water boards are independent democratic bodies with specific tax raising power for flood safety. So we could learn that structural collaboration between plan makers, that is the city, and the water managers, that's the boards, that ensures that water is central to the urban design. Dual use infrastructure came up, like the water square in Bentham Plain. It's a dry plaza, basketball court, state park during the dry period. And during the wet period, it's a retention basin holding 1.7 million liters of rainwater. So the city is getting relief from getting flooded. The financial governance, which is very important, you can just see pooled funding. Basin is paid for by water board, sewage tax. For the plaza is the municipality amenity budget. For the basin is the water board through the sewage tax, and for the plaza is the municipality through the amenity budget. So we can see this is a wonderful example, not only multiple governance working in sync, but it's also turning wastewater into a visible, celebrated urban asset. Similarly, in the Melbourne case also we see the Leaving Melbourne strategy, fragmented management of the urban forest across 32 different local councils. So the solution came Metropolitan Scale Alliance, partnership of these all 32 councils, state governments and NGOs, the Nature Conservancy. They came together. So 30% canopy cover by 2050 is the target, and the biodiversity rule of 5, 10, 20. Maximum 5% of for one species, so no dominant one, 10% one genus, and 20% one family to ensure resilience against disease. So there will be the biodiversity. Now let us come to our own city, that is Surat, to understand this institutionalizing the resilience. 1994 plague, maybe some of you have not even born at that time. And the 2006 floods, which triggered the governance reform in Surat. So both these two events are very, very instrumental to bring the changes. What we saw that Surat Climate Change Trust has come up, and also urban health and climate resilience centers that has come up. There is an end-to-end early warning system for floods on the Tapi River, integrating dam release data with city inundation models. We'll be discussing it further. Tapi Riverfront Development Corporation Limited. A special purpose vehicle was created by the Surat Municipal Corporation, and the board includes the municipal commissioner, collector, independent directors from IITs, SBNITs. They are the academic, the technical partners. Financial autonomy, first a decision making, then a municipal department, that was ensured through this SPV. The problem is tendency to prioritize engineering solutions like concrete embankments over ecological one like maintaining the floodplains driven by the real estate value capture. Another case study from the Kochi that is also very interesting, that governance paralysis in Vembanad wetland. We can see Vembanad coal is a Ramsar site, and we see the conflict between the multiple authorities, whether it is the Coastal Zone Management Authority, their rules and regulations shall be there, or Port Trust, Panchayats, Tourism Department. Is there any synergy between these organizations? No. So, as a result, we are getting illegal high rise constructions due to lack of coordination and enforcement. So, state level wetland authority often acts as a clearinghouse rather than protector of this Bhimbanat coal. So, here we can see another very strong example of governance paralysis. So, we will also find that lake protection forums have come up here, which is example of the bottom up governance. So, community based co-management is now being present there. Fishers, clam collectors, local residents and NGOs, they have come together. Self-regulation of fishing mesh size, that's a very important decision which has been ensured for the sustainable harvest. Fish sanctuaries creation. Regular monitoring of water quality. These are the activities taken up by these lake protection forums. And what we find that previously we have seen that there is a paralysis in the governance. This bottom up governance case is actually demonstrating a very strong fact, that's the users who are dependent on the ecosystem, they are its best stewards when given the governance space. Lastly, we will be discussing the role of judiciary. National Green Tribunal, established in 2010, with the mandate that it's a specialized body for the expeditious disposal of environmental cases. Otherwise, the cases are delayed so long. Landmark interventions in urban governance we can find from NGT, like in the Bengaluru case or Delhi tree pruning case. They act as a shadow regulator, stepping in when the PCBs and ULBs they fail to enforce the law. Now we would like to also see that judicial activism and principles. Which are the key legal doctrines which can be applied? Like polluter pays principle is a very effective one. Industries, developers, they must pay for the restoration of damage. Similarly, public trust doctrine, that the state is a trustee of natural resources, air, water, forest for the public. It cannot privatize them for the commercial gain. And the last one is the precautionary principle. Lack of scientific certainty is not a reason to postpone cost effective measures to prevent degradation. So, we can summarize it through a synthesis discussion that governance transition required as there were silos which has come in a systemic flow. Establish the multi-agency platforms like Rotterdam Water Boards or Surat Climate Trust, so that the systemic flow of the governance system continues. Then from the regulation, we can come to the incentives. Use the TDR and green bonds to make conservation financially viable. From the passive to active citizenship, formalizing the role of RWS and BMCs in decision making, not just consultation. Similarly, the last advice is towards the technocratic to ecological shift, shifting from the engineered like building drains to managing watersheds. So that's the way we can handle not only the sudden problems but also the issue of water throughout the time and throughout the city boundary. So, with this, we can summarize today's lecture like governance of urban ecosystems, regulatory instruments, data and participatory tools, challenges, and we had discussed through case examples. Finally, we concluded the discussion with the role of the judiciary. For this entire week, we have discussed several important things like the stressor. We started with that, development and impacts. Then we discussed the system, urban ecology theory. We discussed the society through the social, ecological, technological systems. We discussed in the last class the strategies, landscape ecology planning, and finally today we have discussed the mechanism, the governance. So that's the way this particular module, the seventh module of this urban ecosystem, we have concluded. These are the references. Thank you.